Hello guys, and welcome to another Factorio base tour. I'm Xterminator, and thank you for joining me. And it's been a while since I've done a base tour, and we are returning with a bang here. This is probably, in terms of sheer scale in multiple regards, I can safely say this is probably the biggest and most impressive base I have ever seen. No contest. It's absolutely mind blowing to me how ridiculous this base is in terms of its sheer scale and time spent and resources consumed. This is just absolutely insane to me. So this base was brought to me, and I was contacted by Barberry or Faulkner. This is their in-game name. Faulkner is their Discord name. I'm not sure which they would prefer to be called, so I'll just say both at the start here. And this is why we're, it's their map. This is why we're them, not Xterminator here. And they contacted me a few days ago and asked if I would be interested in doing a base tour. And it's actually fairly rare that I'm approached for base tour. Usually, usually I just come across them, or maybe I'll approach some people. But it's fairly rare that someone will come to me, and I'm really glad they did, because this base is absolutely insane. So where do we start? First off, I do want to just say these attacks, we are losing things. They have obviously enemies on, but this is, nothing to be worried about. In fact, just temporarily, what I'm going to do is just turn off the alerts sound, just so we don't get too bugged by that, or turn it almost off. So where do we start? Well, why don't we start by looking at the map? If this doesn't give you the scale of things, we'll have a few other indicators for you here, but check out the size of this map. This map is half a gigabyte. This was about 500 megabytes, this save. All the way zoomed out, I'm only getting about 25 UPS, 25 FPS, which actually is really quite impressive. If I take out of the map view, I am actually getting a fairly solid 38 to 40 UPS and FPS, which is actually really, really impressive to me, considering how big this base is and how much stuff is going on. That shows the optimization of the game. I do have a fairly good computer for Factorio, but this is still very impressive to me. Now, a few disclaimers here really quick before we continue taking a look. First off, I specifically asked this because I think everyone likes to know these things ahead of time. There was zero cheating console commands editor used in this. Nothing like that. Several of the bases I've done in the past have been extremely impressive, but they have used creative mode to spawn in patches, or cheat mode to build the base and then turn it off to let the base run. None of that was used here. This is absolutely 100% legit. There's no mods that's been used. There's no editor, no cheat mode, command, no creative mode, mods, nothing like that. Just completely legit. And we can probably tell that from the consume graph once we look at that. One note is they did use a console command to just count the number of solar panels once in a while. I guess just as a disclaimer that that's the only console command they've used. Because once it gets over a certain amount, it's hard to count. Speaking of, how much are there? Well, we could take a look at this first. Usually we look at production, but while we're on this topic, there are 1.6 million solar panels in this base, currently generating, a lot of this is charging accumulators, currently generating 101 gigawatts. This is gigawatts, not megawatts. This is gigawatts. 101 gigawatts of power. 1.6 million solar panels. We can look at a few other stats here. There's over 70,000 beacons in this map, 7,000 assemblers, or 5,000 furnaces, 17,000 roboports, over 50,000 laser turrets. There's 400 labs, nearly 50,000 stack inserters, 11,000 miners. As we can see, what all these are taking. These would actually take more if they were fully running. You can see they're mostly idle here. The current research we're on is worker robot speed 24. Well, what other researches have they done? They have done up to follower count 36. 3,900 packs of each, not super high. This one alone is 500 million science packs, just throwing that out there, that they're currently researching. The one before that, I actually can't, I don't think I can see the one before that, unfortunately. They are up to research level almost 1,200 of mining productivity, and each of those is nearly 3 million science packs per. Obviously, they have decreased, they would decrease a little as you went backwards, but they've done nearly 1,200 researches of mining productivity. What does that give us? That gives us some ridiculous numbers. They have, because recall that each mining productivity research gives you 10% productivity. They have 11,910% productivity. This is insane. Like, I don't know if we can fully grasp. they basically have infinite resources. They didn't generate infinite resources, but they might as well have them at this point with the amount of productivity they've researched. I'm trying to find an ore patch. That is not an ore patch. I actually don't know where their ore patches are. I was looking around before, and I thought I spotted some. I mean, we can look at things like oil. Productivity 11,000, times 7 a second. I mean, they basically, here's a patch. So they're using they're using robots for most of their mining, which is definitely acceptable. This is what I do for a lot of my mega bases. And if we look at this, so this is a 6.6 million coal patch. This, of course, is not taking into account productivity. So, if we had a 100% productivity bonus, just 100%, it would be double this, right? Well, you can see where this goes. If we have 1,000%, it's what, 10 times that? If we have 11,000%, it's like 100. It's like 110 times this. I mean, you can see they basically have infinite patches, and you'll see some ridiculous trains. We'll take a look at those here, but they are using some massive trains here. These are, if I recall correctly, these are 4 104 trains. So 4 locos, 100 wagons, and then 4 on the other end, because they did this, I think, a little bit for optimization reasons, but also to try to represent what trains may be like in real life, more so than just, little tiny like 282s or whatever. They try to represent what they are in real life. Now, of course, they do have some smaller ones, like right here. We are starting here in a Spidertron. There's so much to cover. I'm trying to find, I'm trying to cover things in the best way I can here. We're, of course, going to look at production areas. I think looking at statistics first, though, it's quite interesting. So we've looked at power. We've looked at their bonuses. Does anyone want to take an internal guess in their head how many rockets they think have been launched on this map? Because when they told me, I didn't believe them initially, and this is the most rockets I've ever seen launched outside of, like, Factorio. There have been 2.1 million rockets launched on this map, guys. Can you even comprehend how much? I can't comprehend how much that is. 2,181,602 rockets and satellites launched on this map. This is just, I mean, I'm speechless. This is insane. This amount of rockets is just unbelievable to me. And how is this possible? Well, a little background here. They started this map in 0.15, version 0.15, when nuclear reactors came into the game. It was default generation, so nothing special. Start with, they built a normal base and launched a rocket. For a long time, they had a 250 science pack per minute base, and just kept playing with it and improving it. At some point, they had a nuclear reactor that generated 4.4 gigawatts, which is, laughable compared to the power this base is generating now. Then they built a 1,000 science pack per minute base, inspired a lot by watching my videos, in fact, is what they say, which is pretty awesome. It was a belt base and relied massively on trains and no beacons. Somewhere around 0.16, when 0.16 released, I jumped at it, hating the combat in the game. I wanted the artillery. The UPS got terrible. Yes, a lot of artillery will cause that. we'll start to walk around here while I give you the rest of this background info, and then we'll really explore the production. So what I'm getting at with this background is, one, just giving background, but also they've played this map for nearly 2.5 years. They've started this map in 0.15 and have continued it since. In fact, if we look, this map has over 13,000 hours of playtime on it. Now, I did ask them. They said probably about 80% of that is quote-unquote AFK, where they left the game running and not actively playing. But they did say, they did estimate that probably around 3,000 hours was active playtime. So they have actively, like, been in here doing things, sitting at their desk or whatever, playing for about 3,000 hours in this map, which is still insane for one map. The age, though, of this map is over 13,500 hours, over 2.5 years of playtime. And, you know, I know some people play their maps for a long time. This is probably the most I've ever seen, both in just actual time-wise, 2.5 years old for a map that you've continually played, and just the amount of hours in here is pretty crazy to me, really. So they wanted 3 things from this base. They wanted massive trains, and like I said, trains that look more like real life. They also wanted to not use landfill and not blow up cliffs, just to make it as hard as possible. By this stage, the game had become a bit easy, and this was the restriction made, so, you know, they had to find enough landmass for these huge builds and stuff. And also makes routing the trains a nightmare and such. They just wanted a challenge, wanted something different, wanted to work with the landscape and stuff. So for the most part, they achieved this. They allowed themselves to slightly break the rules now and then with the landfilling and stuff, you know, where they apparently 0.16 update added little segments of water you couldn't really see. So, you know, they landfilled those. And for them, the game is about having fun and not sticking to a bunch of rules. It's also why they still use bots for mining when people use the console to generate nice big patches and stuff. You know, that's certainly a viable way to do it if they want, but they like to just do it vanilla with robots. So there's a few things they've pointed out for me to look at specifically. Is one, the trains, which we will take a look at here. Also, a particular junction, which I've looked at for a little bit, and it's pretty awesome. There is somewhere in here, I found one of the science trains. I found some of the science trains. Somewhere in here, there's a white science, a space science train that carries 8 million white science, space science, and only runs every 2.5 days. So, you know, we can just start, let's just look around to some production. So over here, we have some beaconed, everything is beaconed now at this point. We have some beaconed rocket fuel being made from pretty much everything, actually. It seems like we have some solid fuel being made here from petroleum, light, and heavy oil, and it's belted down, actually, interestingly, to here. So they are doing a mixture of kind of bots, direct insertion they're doing a lot of, and belts as well. Belts are fairly optimized now at this point in the game, and this is just a field of this. You know, we don't need to specifically look at the whole thing. This is just repeated. There's some light oil to rocket fuel down here as well. So here's an example of these trains. For locomotives, there is 100, or somewhere they mentioned 108. So maybe 100 plus wagons here. It goes all the way up to here. And then there's the locomotives here. So what happens here is it goes to the first station right here. If we take a look at, oh, that's pollution. Take a look at this. One rocket fuel load. And then it pulls forward once it's reached its condition for this, which is 21 seconds or inactivity, and you can see it's starting to move now. Perfect timing. It'll pull forward to this station up here, and it will sit there to then load the back half of this train, which we saw had those empty cargo wagons. So that's how they're working with these huge trains here. Now they are using bots. They're pulling from a belt and then putting into chests and having the bots move here. And in a map like this, where your bot research speed, or your bot, movement speed is so high, bots actually are just insanely efficient, so they can really use them for pretty much whatever they want without many issues. You can see there are solar panels scattered throughout this entire map. It looks to be all the same layout, which actually looks quite nice in the map view. It's scattered everywhere, just kind of wherever they have room. You can just see these huge fields all across the map, this being, I would say, the biggest, or this one even. I'm still trying to orient myself with exactly how big this space is. You know, we're down here And this goes all the way up to here. There's even, there's an outpost way out here. It looks like there's even some production out here. So we take a look out here. They're actually doing some copper smelting. And this is a good example of the direct insertion that they use in this map, where they pull, they have some copper right here being mined into these chests. And this is a fairly large robot network, but again, with the massive amount of robot upgrades they have, this is doable. And it's brought to these smelters via requester chests. It's put in the furnaces, smelted, put into 2 chests, in fact, probably for spacing reasons, and then it is dropped into a train. I mean, this is kind of just, well, why I say direct insertion is because, I guess maybe just on site would be better in this case. They have the smelting here at the resource patch, which I think is very viable here. Basically cuts a train out of the equation instead of having an ore train bring it somewhere and then smelt and then a plate train. They just have it all done here, so they just have the one plate train. We can see very much the same thing here on iron. If we look here, I wanted to actually zoom. Can I traverse over here? I want to see one of these miners work with the productivity. It's actually, my guess would be that the GUI in it, the productivity bar in the miner is actually probably broken. We won't really see much. At this high productivity, it usually just breaks the actual visual representation. This is an example of one actually working. There are some charging issues. I'd say it wouldn't hurt to add more roboports, but the bots are just very, very speedy, very quick here. These things, you can see they mine for just a minute, and it just basically fills instantaneously. So we have stuff out there. We have a few things here. This looks like a defensive, this looks like an artillery kind of outpost, I guess you could say. They have them scattered around, one being here. It looks like another, this is a resupply station is what this looks like. I don't actually see artillery in here. There's a radar. It looks like all sorts of repairing because they have this robo network. Logistics network, maybe, if we look. Yeah. So they have these walls. These are like actual, this is interesting. Instead of doing a solid wall, they're doing little pillboxes, you could say, or little bunkers, where they're having them space out like this, which is fine. When you put them this close together and you have probably what I imagine is pretty ridiculous laser upgrades. Where are the, yeah, so, I mean, they're up to laser upgrade 26. Which means that their laser turrets do 1,560% damage and shoot 220% faster, which is kind of ridiculous. So, you can see here damage 20 plus the massive amount of 312, and then they shoot extremely quickly. They shoot 1.5 plus 33 times a second. Not really an issue defending. Some stuff gets destroyed. You can see these guys are pathing over. Once they eventually get here, I'm sure the turrets will just evaporate them. But they have these resupply stations every so often, and artillery. It's kind of both in this case. There's artillery here with some resupply stations. These guys seem to be having some pathing issues. Maybe come back to them. And you can see they've just cleared, they have cliffs on. Again, like I said, they have cliffs, and they've not cleared the cliffs. So you can see these kind of mountainous rails almost. If you've driven on highways or seen trains, train rails going through like mountain passes, this is what this reminds me of. It's very zigzaggy going through all the cliffs here, basically routing it where they can, since they gave themselves a self-imposed rule to not destroy cliffs. It's really quite interesting to me how they've done this, and they of course have lasers lining pretty much everything. Now let's take a look at some more production. So finding our way back to the base here. Up here we have the lab, so we can take a look. We have one train that is mixed of red, green, blue, and purple science, and this contains 160,000 of every one of those sciences. And as you can see, there are multiple of these trains here waiting in the stacker. This just shows you the sheer scale of this. We will look at the production, don't you worry. We'll look at the production soon. Then they have a separate military train which contains 800,000 military science. And if we see if we can find a space science train in here. Is this space science? It's not. See if we can find one somewhere in here. Red science load, red science, waypoint. So this is all red science. I'm trying to find rocket. Here we go. So if we, where is this? Okay, it's over to our right. So if we come over here, it looks like. This is slowly being loaded. This currently has 1 million white science in it. These rocket silos are all here, of course, to provide that science. It looks like they have a little bit of circuitry going on here to probably only launch things when they actually need to, you know, which is pretty nice. That definitely helps to not massively overproduce. Not that in a basis scale it really matters. And we can see some of these crazy junctions they have going on here. What's also amazing to me is just the size of the trains and the amount of production they have going on while not having quote-unquote proper junctions. I don't mean any disrespect whatsoever to these junctions, but these are not what you would normally consider a proper junction. They're not standard whatsoever. They look very much hand-built and kind of just built on the fly, which, again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it makes it more impressive to me, really, that they have a base working to this extent with just kind of thrown together junctions everywhere, it looks like. You can see all these zigzag rails coming through. I mean, it is a testament both to the base itself, their design abilities, and their ability to signal. You know, you don't necessarily need perfect-looking junctions if you know how to signal correctly and such, and it appears they do. Otherwise, this base would not work at all. So this train is pulling in. If we follow this train down, he's actually looks like he may be pulling out here. But we can take a look over here. So this is some circuit production, and they're actually using cars here as a transfer method. This is fairly common in very large megabases for spacing reasons and such, because, you know, you can't, a chest, this is actually too big of a space for a chest. This looks like it wouldn't work as great. So they use cars here. And then, which may actually be hurting the UPS. I don't know if the devs fixed it, but having all these active vehicles, I think at one point, at least when I tried to use them, it did hurt game performance quite a lot. They may have fixed that, I'm not sure. But they're inserting into the cars, and then into the circuit wires, and then into, or the cables here, and then into the circuits, which then output, and you know, these chests are full, so obviously there's no production happening here. And it looks like they're actually, interestingly, sharing a train here for iron and circuits. You can see they have a filter inserter grabbing the iron, and inserter outputting the circuits. And then they also have some other things being made here. It looks like furnaces, some rail, of course for purple science, some pipe, some gears, and they are productivitying everything that can be, you know, productivityed. Of course, that's only intermediates that are allowed to be. You can see they have some battery production going here. Filter inserters to take out the iron and copper. Output here. These, I'm not sure if they have the same beacon design throughout their entire base. So like this, for example, has 16 effect sources, which means that it is a 12 beacon design. The 4 modules plus 12 beacons. And then, you know, I'm just looking through here. So then this one, though, because of the amount of chests they need, see this working off to the side here. This one is actually only an 8 beacon design. So they do have varying amounts of, you know, beacon layouts here, which is, you know, understandable. Sometimes you just simply don't have room for the, you know, same amount of beacons across all your builds. But you can see this working. So this actually shares, interestingly, 3 things. It looks like this shares cable, circuits, and plastic, which is actually very interesting to me. So this is, we have some smarts going on here with these stations, which I'm not really quite sure I can interpret. It looks like they have a nice indicator here, though, potentially of how full this might be or how empty. I would guess how full. So this goes coal and green circuit load, coil, sorry, can't read. And then it goes to red circuit supplies, and then it goes to plastic load. So if we take a look at this train, which just left here. So this one's actually empty. I'd like to see where this train goes. It's almost full. We can follow it. They also have some low density structures made here. This is actually now a 10 beacon build, again just demonstrating that they have different beacon layouts throughout the base. This one is so very close to being full. This guy is emptying out. This guy is very close to full. So these hold a lot of materials, as you might imagine with this many cargo wagons. We are loading this up. Full cargo here, it seems like. So it's trying to meet several conditions. It's trying to fill the cargo as well as unload the, you know, so actually, no, it looks like they're just fully loading this. They're not unloading anything. It looks like they're just putting circuits and copper cable and then already had plastic in it. So this is actually very intriguing to me. So this is purely for red circuits. Obviously, these are all the materials you need for red circuits. This is very interesting. Instead of having cable made at the red circuits, I would assume we can follow this and see. Instead of having that, they are actually making the cable over here and training it in, which is quite interesting. So this is simply just going up here, which looks like it's a stacker for this build. So if we come back out, this just moves over to here basically, and it looks like we have some blue circuits and red circuits. Yeah, so the cable is not actually made at the red circuit build. It's transferred in these trains and then brought here, and then all the materials are within this train and unloaded to red circuits. We also have some module production here. I can't imagine how many circuits are in this train. It's a very expensive train. Basically, probably, since it's been unloading, I'd say over 200,000 green circuits and probably over 200,000 red circuits in this train. Also, this one, I don't know, probably 300,000, 500,000 green circuits on here for these blue circuits. Very, very crazy how much production is throughout this base. And you'll notice I am using the map view just because it's for a base's size, it's obviously very unrealistic to physically move throughout the entire base. We would be here for hours and hours. And here is their massive stackers. So we can just see a line of their trains. We have some copper trains. We have a mixed battery and red electric engine and circuit train. This is probably for robot frames. We have some pipes and gears, probably for engines, I'd imagine. Some circuit trains here, pure battery train, a red circuit, blue circuit train, also with robot frames, probably for the high-tech yellow science. We have some plastic. This train here is... What is this? I don't know these names. Iron plate, interesting naming there. Iron something. And this is the junction I think they wanted me to take a look at. They said the one between their main production and the stacker. So we can just look at this for a minute. Several minutes maybe. It's really pretty crazy. I love seeing multiple trains go through at once, especially these massive trains. This is just great. Like, I'm kind of beyond words. This base, like I said, personally, I'm not saying this is the biggest base ever made because obviously I've not seen every single base made. But over the years and years I've been playing the game and been part of the community, this is probably, in terms of physical size, time on the map, and rockets launched, this is probably, in general production, this is probably the biggest base I've ever seen that is not modded and not, cheated in with stuff, not creative moded in. Obviously, like, Factorio maybe had bigger numbers. I don't even know if our Clustorio. I don't even know if our Clustorio, the 60,000 per minute multiple server thing, I don't even know if we hit this many rockets. But that obviously doesn't count. That was very heavily not vanilla, really. So this is just mind-blowing to me. I'm really beyond words. I am so honored to take a look at this map. They have some sulfuric acid being made here, so they put it right on the water, and they just have tank after tank after tank of sulfuric acid on this gigantic, liquid train here. And you can just see, like, the size of these stackers they have, these kind of wonky junctions they got going on, but they work. Like I said, if they didn't work, the base wouldn't be doing anything, and the base is doing things. Can just see these guys moving through this this junction here, just all going to that main production area. And I think this is a good lead-in to look at the production graph, which I'm sure you guys have been anticipating. I kind of wanted to show you the actual physical production first because I want you to understand, like, what it takes to then get these numbers we're going to see in the production graph. And it's ridiculous. So we take a look here. It looks like on average, this seems to be doing about 10k science per minute right now. We see some almost 10k, some 11ks. I would say if we average it all out, probably around 9 to 10,000 science a minute, which is actually, I mean, that's actually huge in and of itself. That's a very impressive number. Again, vanilla and stuff being at over 30 UPS, basically 10,000 science of every kind a minute is pretty ridiculous. We can see some numbers here, 500,000 iron per minute. This is a per minute rate, guys. Every single minute they are smelting over 500,000 iron plates. They're making over almost a quarter million green circuits, over 100,000 gears every single minute, over 60,000 circuits a minute, red circuits that is, over 4,500 put it to be ones. Excuse me. You can see there's some things missing from this graph, like blue circuits. It's probably because the blue circuits just aren't on now because they're not needed. They are, however, consuming almost 8,000 blue circuits a minute, along with 70,000 rails a minute consumed for purple science. And we can just go out a little bit further. In 10 minutes, they're producing or equally basically consuming over 5.5 million iron every 10 minutes. Over 1 million circuits every 10 minutes. You can see where this is going. Every single hour that passes on this map, 30 million iron consumed, basically. 20 million copper, 11 million circuits. So every hour, they are halfway completing the 20 million green circuit achievement. No big deal, right? Every 2 hours, boom, another green circuit, 20 million green circuits produced achievement. Every 2 hours. 4 million rails every 2 hour or every 1 hour. This just gets more and more insane. And what's crazy is the fact that this save has been played or not has been running for over 13,000 hours. For once, the 1,000-hour graph is actually relevant. I think in a few other bases I previewed it has been, or we can just look at all. But why don't we just look at let's look at 50 hours. That's not that crazy, right? That's maybe week or two worth of play. 1.5 billion iron in the last 50 hours. Almost 800 million green circuits. 164 million. I keep saying thousand because I can't comprehend its millions. Rails. 25 million blue circuits. If we look at science, so in the last 50 hours, they've basically done 22 million of every single science pack, which is nuts. If we look in the last hour, we didn't really look at science packs here. So every hour, they're basically consuming 500,000 science packs an hour, which is ridiculous. If we let's just look at the all-time graph. This is where things get off the charts if they aren't already. The entirety of this playthrough of this map, this base has produced or consumed 165 billion, that is billions, 165 billion iron. 127 billion copper consumed, almost 80 billion circuits, 16 billion red circuits, almost 20 billion steel, nearly 10 billion rails. 10 billion rails have been consumed. And they have consumed a total of what looks to be about 2 billion of at least the first 4 packs and space science, and 1.7 billion purple science. So this one probably just because there's less purple science, I'd imagine, to do or something. But we can just say about 2 billion science has been consumed in this map in total. Almost 3 billion blue circuits have been consumed. Nearly 1 billion low density structures. These are like the numbers here. These are billions, guys. Like, can you, like, when you imagine whatever base you play on, when you think of like how much, low density structures or something you've consumed, or how much green circuits you've consumed, even for me, who's built multiple mega bases, I would say, if it's in the millions, maybe a couple hundred millions, that's really impressive. comparing that to the tens of billions, over 100 billion in some cases, resources consumed on this map, is insane. 2 million nuclear fuel cells. They're not on nuclear anymore. They're, of course, on solar. This is just... this is just unbelievable to me. I'm in shock. They made 800,000 Speed 2 modules. I assume these are just modules to go on all the machines. If we look somewhere down here, we should see a level 3, perhaps. I would think. Those are level 2s. Where are level 3s? Here, I mean, there's some level 3 efficiencies. Consuming... Why would they have consumed level 2s? I don't know. Can look at production, though, probably, to find this number. Maybe. Okay, so they have made 162,000 level 3 modules of speed. 162,000 level 3 speed modules. Absolutely ridiculous to me. And 38,000 productivity modules. Of course, these are far less because they go on machines and not all the beacons. But yes, so this base, by far the biggest base I've ever come across in my time in Factorio. I think we've looked at nearly everything. I'm trying to think. We looked at the smelting, we looked at the mining, we looked at circuit production, some oil productions. They did one other thing they wanted me to look at is they said there are 2 separate oil refineries, one which uses pipes and the other that uses robots. I'm not exactly sure where those would be. Sadly, nothing is labeled here. We know that's labs. I'd imagine it'd be a fairly large build. This is smelting. This is obviously smelting. Some artillery. You can see where the artillery is explored out here. This goes all the way to this side. I mean, we didn't even look on this side, but these are all pretty much just outposts, artillery or resource outposts. Come over here. Let's see, what's down here? More smelting. The area we were standing in, the area our Spidertron is located in here, this is kind of their make everything. If we come down here a little bit, we have obviously a far smaller stacker located here, and then, you know, just basically a make everything right here. Basically, this looks like a building train for sure. All kinds of stuff in that. If we look, trying to figure out where on earth their oil might be. I see some plastic production. Perhaps we can find it from here. Let's see if we can find where this guy goes. Plastic, refinery. So we're looking for a refinery. I don't exactly know where that might be. Why don't we go ahead and follow this? I just want to see where this is going to take me. Okay, so it's down here. Okay, so we have... Alright, we have 2 refinery systems. This one looks to be the pipe-based one. So this is... They are using a lot of undergrounds, which is good to minimize overall pipes. See how fast this is draining. If we never looked at the fluids. I mean, the fluids are going to be more insane, clearly. In the, 500 billions for this. 500 billion, guys. But yeah, so every minute, they're making about 1.5 million petroleum a minute, which is pretty insane. So this pulls through, I think, a very similar system where it has 2 stations to then fill the other half. And then they have another one down here, which looks to be the bot-based one. And they said they're still trying to figure out which way is actually better, and I don't really have an answer, to be honest. Obviously, the bot one requires more things because they need to barrel and unbarrel everything. I'm still inclined to think it's better than a ton of pipes, but maybe not, because you still have to use pipes to some degree. So actually, in all honesty, based on just the general look of this pipe amounts compared to all the extra production, all the extra things with barreling, I'm gonna say this version's actually probably better, UPS wise. Ton of lube production here, lots of lubricant, need lots of that. So yeah, this is pretty interesting. Very similar setup. Of course, they have advanced oil, cracking, beacon designs here. You can hit a refinery with more beacons than other machines because it's bigger. And then they're just barreling, unbarreling. They're even doing so with oil, which is kind of ridiculous. Um, so that's actually really neat. But yeah, this is, I mean, this is just insane to me. This is really quite ridiculous. One thing I wanted to look at, I think we're going to bring our Spidertron over here, and this is probably the last thing we're going to look at for this. Are there actually miners on this? Or is this just assemblers? Okay, there is a miner. Can I not? Oh, okay, I was like, can I not get out of here? So do they not have, they don't have any power armor. This is purely a building armor. Maybe, oh yeah, they have like 4 power armor. So this is a walking armor. But what I want to look at, if we... So obviously this is not, like they just sent me a copy of their save, so this won't hurt them at all. But, so yeah, this productivity bar, it's obviously, like, this is the fastest visually it can move, but you get the idea. How many times this is giving us productivity, you know, I mean, you can look at this. Like, look how fast this fills a chest. This is just actually ridiculous. So, in whatever time that was, what, maybe 30 seconds, this is mined 2.4 thousand uranium. A lot of that just being free because of the productivity bonus. Do that almost 12,000%. It's pretty ridiculous. So there we go. I think, you know, massive storage here, obviously. Just a casual 333,000, or yeah, 1,000 green circuits in this storage. You know, 5,000 assembler 3s, basically. How many robots are in here? They have they have separate robot networks, so it's not like there's going to be massive amounts. And really, there shouldn't be anyway, because they have such high robot upgrades. You shouldn't need that many to achieve a large amount. But I think that's going to do it for this, guys. It's already been probably at least a 40-minute video. There's just so much to cover. This base is just truly impressive. Thank you so much, Barbary or Faulkner, for presenting this to me. I'm really, really glad to have reviewed it. I hope I did it justice. You know, I hope I didn't forget anything. I did look through the notes and try to cover everything that was mentioned. And just find what I could throughout the map. There's a lot to look at here. This is insane. This is just unbelievable to me. The fact that there were no cheats used, no mods used, is 100% vanilla. They're using these crazy long trains, which I always find really interesting. Look at this robo. They have 14,000 robots in here. Holy moly. What on earth are they doing here? I'm doing my outro, but now I'm wondering what's happening here. So these are questing. Is this all just coming from here? I'm not entirely sure what's actually happening here. So they're just smelting right here. That's it. Those few smelters? No way those smelters can fill this up. Okay, I'm a little confused. I'm gonna be honest. These are not. These are maybe. Wow. Oh, passive provider and then requester. So it looks like this is just like a transfer station. They're maybe pulling it from here, dropping it off here in the passive providers, and then requesting it to go on the other trains. I don't know. That wouldn't be my guess. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for this base tour, guys. This has been crazy. I hope you made it through the whole thing. It's just mind-blowing. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. This is just so amazing to me. I love doing base tours, and this has got to be, like I said, this has got to be the biggest base I've ever seen, ever. That's not modded, cheated, or something like that. So there you go, guys. That is this mega base with some absurd production numbers, amount of rockets launched, time on the map, everything, physical size of the map. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. If you did, a like is much appreciated, so hopefully other people can find this and just get some joy out of seeing this craziness. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe to keep up with all the content I'm putting out like this. And until next time, guys, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.